as the managing director of Big Wangers Incorporated, which produces all Fact Fiend content, I've made it known to all the people working with us that you come back to the office when you feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I feel like that's the best way to do it. But apparently, Lucas, not a lot of other businesses think that way.
Of course
because, for some reason, businesses that have paid like 10-year leases on office buildings that have been stood empty for a year really think it's important for people to come back to the office, despite the fact that their businesses have been operating, sometimes with more profit, with people working from home, want people to come back to work. And that has led to several amazing articles. And I've got one here. This is from Boston Globe Ideas. Okay. I'm going to read you now, Lucas, just a brief snippet from a Twitter thread posted by Boston Globe. So we have here, many are convinced that a post-pandemic corporate America will have a hybrid workforce in which most people work remotely and companies save on real estate. So that sounds pretty reasonable. Lucas, it's coming, the but. But the hybrid workplace is merely an illusion. John Levy argues for 4 reasons. So I'm going to put these reasons out, Lucas, and then just feel free to respond to them when I've read them. So reason 1, the Allen curve. In the 1970s, because 1970s work culture is representative of 2021.
Yeah, 50
literally 50 years ago. MIT professor Thomas Allen discovered that office communications increased exponentially the closer desks were. Even in the age of Slack, email, and Zoom, the fact remains out of sight is often out of mind. So Lucas, that's the first argument for why you should go back to work. Thoughts?
What does communication mean?
Also, as well, I'd like to point out that was a study done in the 1970s, before the advent of email.
Yeah.
So they're arguing that a study done in the 1970s, before people could email you or contact you instantly and have a literal, like we're doing now, a face-to-face conversation from across the country, in some cases the world.
Yeah.
They're holding that up as a reason why you should go back to the office.
I'm really confused though. They compare talking in the office to Slack and Zoom and shit like that, but yeah, that's the 70s. The internet wasn't invented yet.
Yeah, that's...
How are you bringing Slack and Zoom into an argument from the 1970s?
Yeah, so I guarantee you, if you went back to the 1970s and told, cutthroat businessmen, you can automate, or not automate, but you can streamline half the conversations you're doing. Right? The reason the fax machine exists is because they found a way. So Joe, rather than posting a letter, you can just instantly send it and it'll arrive. But things like that are incredible for businesses and a huge boon to productivity because they just minimize, they cut all the fat, they trim that fat out.
Well, what I'm confused by is it uses the really vague term of communication. That could be having a chat with the guy at the desk next to you. Mm-hmm. If anything, only talking to each other when you need to have conversations is more productive because you're booking in meetings to talk about specific things rather than just chatting at the water cooler with people in the office.
I'd also like to point out the example they're using is from the 1970s, before the internet existed, but they're using it to argue against the internet. So the argument they're making does not factor in, or does never factored in things like the internet because it didn't exist.
Mm-hmm. And I'd argue that any office study from 50 years ago is just moot at this point.
It is not representative of workplace culture. It's not representative of workplace culture 5 years ago, let's say. Mm-hmm. Joe, just pre-pandemic life. It's not representative because even just last year, you could email someone. Mm-hmm. And there was always that joke, isn't there? This office meeting could have been an email. Yeah. And there was so much just opportunity and so much of office life that was rife for just being just streamlined. Mm-hmm. Which the pandemic has done because do you want to contact me? Fucking email it to me. I ain't got fucking time for a meeting.
It's no one's just walking up to your desk anymore and distracting you for 10 minutes to have a chat about the weekend.
And you also as well don't have just the boss or not the boss, but the middle managers.
The supervisors and stuff just walking up and down.
This is a great example of this in the show I'm watching at the moment, Amazing Miss Maisel. Okay. Where one of the characters on that goes back home because their family's quite rich and their family owns oil. Mm. And they've got the patriarch of the family. He's like, I'm working at the moment, so don't distract me. And the joke is that it's the woman who's there to ask for money is being basically crowded out. It's like, look, this is man's talk. You don't understand the work that goes on here. And she's like looking at him, and his job is he's just walking up to her, working? I'm like, yep. Okay, carry on. How's it going? It's like, going well, sir. Carry on. And that's it. That's all he does. And he's like, and in his head, he's like, I'm working. I'm working so hard right now. This place would fall apart without me. And the answer, realistically, no, it wouldn't.
No.
The day-to-day running would go just fine without you.
I'm really curious to see, like, what those people have been doing for the past year.
They have been writing articles like this to get people to go back. Remember right at the start of lockdown, where we had that...
The fashion guy that gets annoyed that people weren't dressing up for Zoom calls. Like,
yeah.
Fuck off, mate.
It's because he was witnessing the obsolescence of his own career. And it's the same thing here with like middle managers and things like that, and office owners. Because, like, you know, people own these buildings. Yeah. And these buildings are like, you know, just standing empty. So huge companies, I think it's like Pinterest, have just said like, oh, fuck it. Why would we pay for New York real estate when our entire workforce can work from home? Fuck it. If you want to work from home, do it. We're going to close our office and get a smaller one somewhere else. Yeah.
And I've heard of a lot of companies are saying they're going to move to, or have moved to, smaller offices where people have like shared workspaces. So it's not like everybody has their own desk. It's, you know, half of the staff are in Monday, Tuesday, half of the staff are in like Thursday, Friday, and they each share like a desk with another person or whatever, and Wednesdays interchange and blah, blah, blah. Just, again, hybrid models of working from home.
Yeah,
and,
but no, it won't, Lucas. It won't, because a study from the 1970s said that if my desk is 3 foot away from yours, we'll communicate more. Anyway, the next one is reason 2, trust. As distance increases, teams need higher levels of trust to function, and trust is traditionally created through little actions that are more fluid in person. Those working in person may bond more than those working remotely. The existence of like online dating completely ruins like that argument of like it's really difficult to forge bonds with people that are far away. After a year of people being like, yeah, I made so many friends just talking online and stuff like that.
Just want to point out, like, to use an example. So, okay. You know, Jenna, my girlfriend, working from home, has been for the past year.
Yep.
She was working like in one office, didn't work with any other members of her team in the office, because it's like an international company. Like any like member of her small team is either like in America, in another UK office, blah blah blah. Like she's had more time to engage with those people since working from home. Actually gets to like, you know, go on video chats and talk to these people, because everyone, it doesn't matter, everyone's just at home now. There's also somebody that like she's physically never met in person because they joined the team like 6 months ago, still working with them fine. So it's actually made it way easier for her to interact with every like member of her team and communicate with them and trust them more, because she's not sat in an office without any of them on her own.
It's also as well, if you're all working towards the same goal and you're all being paid to do the job, yeah, the trust is in like, you know, it's implicit.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we're working for the same, like, it's not, also as well, this reads like something of like, oh, I just miss office, like workplace, like culture. It's like, no, anyone who misses that can fuck off.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I just really miss going out for drinks at the end of the day, says like the middle manager no one wants to hang out with anyway.
And like, a hybrid model is not taking that away.
No.
Because at the end of the day, if like you get told you can go in 2 days a week, like go in 2 days a week, and one of those days meet up with a few people after work and go for a drink. Like, it doesn't matter.
But there also as well, there's something known as Weasel words. It's a term used to describe like words that give the illusion of authority when they're not actually saying. Also, like you imply like a definitive statement when they actually don't. And the Weasel word in this one is those working in person may bond, because that says like that doesn't actually tell me anything. Because I could say working in person may result in people falling down the stairs, because they're like it may result in people having fist fights, because it might.
Yeah.
Well, just because it might doesn't mean it does happen, but it's implied by they're trying to imply that that's the case.
Like Karl, there might be a correlation between like people working at the office and people dying more. There may be.
Like, we don't know. They are trying to imply a correlation that does not exist and has no evidence backing it up. And that's not something you should be doing when you're writing for something as prestigious as the Boston Globe.
Yeah, I understand that point of like, yeah, maybe when you're writing an article to like try and argue how the entire industry and like world should be working, maybe have some actual like statistics to back your
that
argument up.
that are not from the 1970s, and that's one of those things
No,
where,
70s,
like,
yeah.
I'm aware of how media is constructed and how headlines are constructed and how like you write in the journalistic voice, because I did like it's not really a minor, I guess, but I did a module on like journalism. I studied it for a couple of years as part of my course, and I'm aware of the existence of weasel words and like how bad they are, because that's the thing, that the reason they're so dangerous is because a lot of the time they fly under the radar,
Yeah.
and that's not
Like
something
when
a
you
lot of
said
people
that
pick up
sentence to me the first time, like, yeah, it did kind of just fly under the radar.
until I point out may. Like, they're not actually backing up anything they're saying. They're making a correlation, a spurious one that has no evidence backing it up. And then we have, would you like reason 3, Lucas?
Go on, yeah.
Okay, so reason 3, working from home can be too convenient. So commuting gives us time to process our days, let our minds wander, and explore our ideas. Additionally, office life forces transitions and breaks throughout the day. And Lucas, this is the picture they use for that. Does anyone in that picture look like they're having a good day?
And I'm
Like-
presuming that's what, like, the picture of an underground.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's a picture of a
okay,
subway in America. And look at that guy at the front. Look at the black dude with the headphones. He could not give less of a fuck.
He is
He's
not
like-
processing his day right now.
Like, that's the thing as well, like, Lucas. Like, commuting gives us time to think. It's like, fuck off.
Karl, how would I process the editing I've done if I don't have to, like, get
Travel.
on a cram train home?
But what's so funny about that is, like, the argument they're basically making is, we want you to spend more time you're not being paid to think about work, thinking about work. Mm-hmm. That's the argument there. And you know what? Fuck that. If I'm not being paid, I'm not fucking working.
And that's the exact same thing with when companies normalize having like work phones that you've got to keep on, so that you've constantly got a device like in front of you reminding you, oh, here's your job, here's your right here. Oh, see those emails coming in, like your job, it's right there.
Yeah, and I've not experienced this in regards to office life, because my only experience by that is like, you know, just working, temp work and stuff like that, so it's not really representative. But when I worked in the restaurant industry, and I've like talked like multiple times before about my old boss being like, oh yeah, you have to turn up 15 minutes before a shift for a briefing, and I just, every single time we'd have an argument of, am I getting paid? No.
Yeah.
Then I'm not turning up. And they would argue with me, and it would always devolve into like just them shouting at me, like, look, Karl, you need to come in for 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. Like, you need to have this briefing, otherwise you can't work. And like, am I being paid? No, then I'm not fucking coming in.
And I understand the argument of, like, you know, you can't arrive in the building when your shift starts. You have to be ready to start your shift.
When your shift starts, you should be ready for your shift. So I'd
because,
always
yeah,
have.
at the end of the day, they shouldn't be paying me to get ready for work because I'm not working yet. But if you expect me to turn up 15 minutes before my shift technically starts, you know, ready to go, get a briefing, that's work. That's a job at the end of the day.
It's like there is always that thing implied by, like, you know, travel time to and from work. Even like working from home, there's still like, you know, a 5-minute break where you like walk to your PC to turn it on. Mm-hmm. That's implied, that's expected, that's an accepted part of work. Like, you can't be paid for literally every second you are working.
And I think some companies like do give compensation for travel time and stuff like that. And I think
or a fuel allowance.
Do argue that like travel time should be included in pay, and I can see arguments for and against that.
Yeah, but like you know, the 5 minutes of me walking into the building, putting my shirt on and going up to the thing. But I remember just like it came to a head eventually, where I came into the restaurant because I just so happened to arrive like 20 minutes early because I was in the area. I just finished like meeting somebody or something like that. I can't remember if it was when I was at university or not. It's like, you know, this is how long ago and how hazy everything is. But I arrived at work like 20 minutes early, and I was in my uniform and I sat down. And they said, okay, you ready for a briefing? And I put my headphones on. Just out of principle, I am not working if I'm not being paid. And my boss just fucking went off on one. And I just stood up and I noticed that our big manager was in. And our big manager, Deborah, was a no-nonsense fucking woman. She did not like deal with any of that. And I just walked over to her very matter of fact. I asked her, Deborah, if I'm not being paid, do I have to work? And she went, no, Karl. no, you don't. I'm like, can you please explain that to Blanche? And just motion over to my boss, and she just scurried back into the back office. And I never got bothered about it again because I was so pissed off.
I don't blame you, yeah.
Yeah, because she's like, if I'm not working, I just asked her, like, if I'm not being paid, I'm not working right. She said, well, of course not now. And if you should always be paid for any work that you do. And just looked over, can you tell her?
Yeah, and like, fair play to, as mentioned, like, I worked for Nando's for several years, and like, anytime I'd get in a little bit early or stay a little bit late, it like would always be make sure you clocked in.
Yeah.
Like, don't come in and like, if you've walked in half an hour early because you were in town and just hanging about, and we ask you to come in early, like, clock in early because you're fucking working. And
I talked before as well, like, the American influence, because I've only worked for one American company, and that was the Hilton Hotel. I worked there briefly, and I hated that the American workplace culture influence on that, because they had a time clock. Because normally it'd just be like, you write your hours down. Like, we said like a paper thing, but it's like, no, you check in at this exact time, and that's when you get paid. And I remember they introduced a system where if you are 1 minute late, you get docked 15 minutes. And I've talked before about this, where I came in once, clocked in, because I didn't know the time. I just knew, like, I start work around 10, boom, done. And I was on the bar, just setting up the bar, and they came up, Karl, you were a minute late, so you've been docked 15 minutes. I went, oh, thanks, and just went and sat down. And the person, they went on a fucking tirade, like, what are you doing? I'm not being paid. I'm not being paid. I'm like, again, and this is something that I was able to do because I was writing at the time, and I only worked in those places for the social aspect. And
because I remember when you were working there at the time, fuck it, I just picked it up because I could, like...
Yeah, like a friend of mine offered me to get me the job, and specifically I worked for the Hilton because they offered a 90% discount on Hilton hotel stays, so I used that. I think was it you as well?
It was, like, me and a couple of other people for when we went to a wedding, yeah.
I used that to get us, like, a £10 hotel room for a wedding a couple of months later, so I didn't give a fuck about that job. I was just going in to, like, earn a bit of extra money and get that discount, and just see the boss go red in the face because they'd never had someone tell them, I'm not working if I'm not being paid. And then just hearing them try and argue, like, but you're on the clock. It's like, well, I'm going to be paid for it then, right? No. It's like, okay, can we take this higher? Because I'd like to have a conversation about this with someone higher up in the company. Because I'm pretty sure I should be paid for any work that I'm doing. And they were, no, just stop arguing. It's like, what is this? These are the people who are in charge. Yeah, how do you get to be in charge of a business and people if you're that fucking bad at talking to people and encouraging them to work for you?
Because they're willing to be callous knobheads to people.
Yeah.
Probably.
And that's so many people are willing to because they don't want the argument or they don't want to risk their employment.
Normally it's because they don't want to risk their employment, yeah, because...
And as I said, the only reason I was this confident... Because I didn't do this years ago. Like, prior to starting writing, I was, like, same as anyone, where I'd like, oh, Karl, you need to come in early to do this for a briefing. I would never dare ask him being paid. So on a 0-hour contract, and I needed that money.
Yeah. 100%. And, like, it is one of those things, isn't it? Of, yeah, when you don't have a safety net, when you don't have, like, savings, when you're living week to week and getting fired, knowing, like, well, if I get fired right now, I'm not going to get paid again in time to, like, go and fucking pay my rent or whatever it is.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I want to clarify for this. It's not that I am a hyper-principled piece of, like, stubborn asshole. And I am, but only when I've got, like, I was basically, there was no risk to me personally.
Yeah.
Because, like, these as well, oh, we'll give you a bad review. It's like, why do I care if I get a bad review? Why would I care if you, I don't know, a bad review, a bad reference? Why would I give a shit? I've already got a great reference from the last place I worked. I don't care. I'm working here for 3 months to get a discount on a hotel room. But yeah, so that's something I want to clarify. The only reason I was able to do that is because there was no risk to myself, and I did not mind being that stubborn to argue with these bosses because the worst they could do is fire me. And if they fire me, it's fine. I can just go home and write an article.
Again, yeah, like, you had that other job to keep yourself safe and, like, potentially, I don't know, like, maybe savings at the time and whatnot. So yeah, like, we're not sitting here going, oh yeah, you should risk everything on a whim to have an argument with a manager over something petty. It's, like, probably not normally worth it unless you have, like, another option to go in to deal with that.
But at the same time, I will say it was very satisfying. It was so satisfying.
Yeah, it is satisfying, and people should be, like, actually, called out for shit like that. But again, like, it's very hard to be in a position to safely call your manager out on their bullshit.
Yeah. And it only happened, I think I talked before about the last time that happened, or like the big time that happened at one of the restaurants I worked at, is when my manager said, Karl, you're not allowed to have your phone on the bar, which is fair. Because it was like, standard things, just have it on the bar charging. And I had it on charge and I was using it to check the time and have a watch. And they saw me do that. So fair enough, I hold my hands up to it. I was using my phone. You're not supposed to do that. They went, give me your phone. I went, will you sign a piece of paper saying you take responsibility for my phone? Because this is like a £400 phone. This is the only one I have. If it gets lost, broken, otherwise rendered inoperable, will you take... And they just responded, don't be stupid, give me your phone. And that just annoyed me. So I was like, no. Take say you're going to... And sign a piece of paper doing that. Put it in the safe and take responsibility. And then we were like, no, I'm not doing that. Stop being sarky, give me your phone. And I just went, no. I went, okay, if you don't give me your phone, you can go home. So I went home. And it was in the middle of a really busy shift and just left them high and dry.
Oh, I've had the opposite experience of that. Like, not with managers, but with customers. Like, customers going up to me, can I charge my phone? Well, no. Well, why not? Well, because, like, we can't take responsibility for your item. Like, if we take that into the back and charge your phone and something happens, if it goes missing, if it breaks, whatever, then you're going to be on our back and we've got to take responsibility for that. Well, I don't care, put my phone on charge. And it gets to the point with a lot of customers where I had to go to my manager and be like, let them see me have a word with manager. My manager being like, no. Walk back over to them. My manager said, we can't take your phone. Yeah. Oh, I want to speak to the manager about it. Go back over to the manager. They're not taking no for an answer. Can you please? Just because they want to just see a person in a shirt, tell them no. So they go over, well, this is ridiculous. What do you expect me to do without my phone? Like, I don't know, fucking charge your phone before you come to a restaurant. Like, it's not our problem, is it?
But, my favourite thing about that interaction, though, is that it was a really busy night, and the guy who was like telling me to hand my phone over was the supervisor, not the boss. And he wasn't allowed to tell me to go home. But I just went, okay, sure. And I took my apron off and I handed my apron to him right in front of the customers.
Yeah.
And just went, I'm sorry, I've got to go home. I just write to the customer, he'll serve you now, and just walked out. I don't give a fuck. And I remember getting a phone call like where are you? I went home. I got told to go home, and that ended up being... So let's have a meeting about that. And because he filed a formal complaint about my attitude with the company. And I had to sit down and give my side of it. And when I was sat there with my boss, he went, look, Karl, I know what happened, but we have to write a formal complaint so someone can review it. And I knew as well. And I asked him, like, who's reviewing it? He went, Deborah. I went, oh, I'm fine then.
Yeah.
And he asked me, like, okay, so Karl, why did you talk back to your supervisor? And I just said, because he was being a prick. And I can't write because he was being a prick on this paper. And I went, yes, you can, because you've got to quote me. And I said he's being a prick. He was being a prick. And I really disappointed I never managed to get a copy of that because I wanted to frame it on my wall because it just said, Karl responded when asked why he told the manager no because he was being a prick. Oh. And nothing ever happened.
Yeah. Oh. I remember that
it was like, just
let it go into head office on my behalf once of like I had a customer complaint and I went, that never happened, that's bullshit. And it's like, all right, okay, I was on shift, I know that it's bullshit, but I need to send a letter up to head office with your name on it, with your like note of accounts. But they just walked into the room and was like, we've had a customer complain like X and Y really bad things about you. And we need to send a letter to head office. And I'd been there for like 6 months and was like, oh no, like, I'm getting fucking fired. And then a minute later, my supervisor's like, no, I saw what happened. Like, I know that didn't happen. You're fine. You're fine. Just calm down. But I was just like that moment of like, yeah, we've had this really bad complaint and we're going to send like it up to head office with your name on it. It's like, oh shit.
And then you realise, yeah, no one cares.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was just... I just like that one though. Why did you do it? Because he was being a prick.
God. You must have been a fun guy to work with for managers.
No, the thing is, like, my manager, I've taught that restaurant, that's the one where I had 3 managers, 2 of which liked me because I was a good worker. And if they were nice to me, so I didn't mind working for them. And it's like the nice manager, if he wanted me to stay like an extra 20 minutes, like the implicit thing there is like, oh, Karl. And he'd always say, because he was like a really flamboyant gay guy, he was, oh, Karl, darling, can you just stay for a bit longer and clean down the bar? I'm like, oh, but I've already signed out, James. He'd go, I'll give you a pint. And I'd go, you know what, yeah, I'll stay for 15 minutes and clean like the coffee machine while he just like does some filing, get a pint and then go home. That to me feels like a fair exchange of services, and I wouldn't mind. Then he'd say, do you mind coming in a bit early to help me set up? He goes, and he'd be like, yeah, you can't write on your timesheet because the other manager's like a stickler for that, but I will let you take like a long lunch or something like that, and then sign your timesheet saying you were out for 45 minutes and you're out for like an hour or something like that. And that was fine, and I was happy to do that. But when it's just the other manager was just a complete dick about all those things, it's just because they were such a stickler for the rules, like, well, I'm only going to do what I'm paid to do.
Yeah.
Like when it was, Karl, could you out and get some milk? Nope, I'm not allowed to leave the desk. Can you make me a coffee? Nope, I'm not allowed to do anything other than my job. Because it'd always be like, you could get free coffee if you work there, but they cracked down on getting free coffee because I was making like fucking coffee for everyone and just giving it away. It's like, fuck yeah, it costs us nothing. So no, you're not allowed to make coffee for staff anymore. So I just like, I'm not making you one then. You're staff.
I did find that funny of like, that happened to us and it was like, no, like you're all abusing the coffee machine. You're all making like 30 times more coffees than we sell. Like it's a restaurant, like people aren't coming in for like coffee really. It's like, okay, well, you know, we'll calm down on that. And it's like, yeah, like, no, you're not allowed it at all. We're like, well, fuck that. And everyone just started getting in like really pissy moods on shift. And like about 3-4 days later, there's just like a massive like bag or box of coffee or whatever. And it's like, yeah, this is staff coffee. Like we get it. Yeah, you're pissed off if you don't all get your coffee on shift, but you can't take like the nice machine coffee that we, you know, have there for customers and just use it all.
Well, yeah, it's fair. It's those little acts of rebellion. It's like the one for me was we used to have coffee, like I said, and we'd have it on the bar. And it'd just be, you take a sip of the coffee. It's like, no, it looked really bad to have coffee on the bar. You're only allowed now to drink water. So what I started doing is like my minor act of rebellion is I'd get water, but I'd fill it with ice, or I'd fill it with like 15 lemons. And it's like, no, Karl, you can't have that many lemons in your water. It's like, fucking hell. Who gives a shit how many lemons are in my water? And then it got to the point where if you want a drink, you have to have it in the back room. Because you can't drink on the bar because it looks bad. And I remember that. I went, okay, sure. And I just, every half an hour, I'd go into the back room and get a sip. And I remember that boss, the bad one, not the good, the bad one. Karl, where are you going? I'm going to get a drink of water. And say, no, you can't leave the bar. And I went, okay, will you sign a piece of paper telling me I'm not allowed to go for a drink of water?
Yeah, you signed something saying that you're going to leave me dehydrated on shift.
Yeah, and I just said, will you sign a piece? And she went, no, why would I do that? And because that's what you're telling me to do. I'm asking to go get a drink of water. I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to do that. If you're not letting me, will you sign a piece of paper saying that you're doing that? And she went, just go get your drink. And that went on for like 3 weeks before that policy was rescinded.
That's not a good idea.
And you're allowed to have water on the bar as long as you drink it when customers are there. It's like, that's all you needed to do. But I remember that. I just asked, will you sign a piece of paper just saying that you're not letting me get a drink of water? Why would I do that? Because that's what's happening right now.
There was always one person who worked with us, like, they clearly took the absolute piss. Like, he did not care how many times he was known to go to the toilet on shift. Like, 10 minutes later, he'd be like, yeah, I'm going to the toilet again. And just walk off shift and, like, clearly just slacking off. But like, when a manager would call them up on it, be like, well, you're not allowed to go to the toilet. He's like, you can't fucking tell me I'm not allowed to go to the toilet. Like,
that's
no.
all you need to do in those situations. This is a pro tip. Just say to your boss or whoever's telling you to do that, will you write on a piece of paper? If it's something like you're not allowed to go for a drink of water or you're not allowed to go to the toilet, just say, will you sign a piece of paper telling that, just date it, saying that you did not let me go to the toilet at this point. And if they ask why, just say, for my records. That's all you need to say.
Oh, God. I absolutely love stuff like that. I was just like, yeah, you can't tell me I'm not allowed to drink fucking water on shift. Like,
yeah.
What?
But I just, like, it was one of those things where the only reason they told people they couldn't go to the bar is because they personally didn't like it. Customers didn't give a shit. So if you see someone taking a sip of water, so of course, yeah, if they're thirsty. No, maybe not like when I'm talking to a customer, like down in a pint or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But just like, quietly when the bar's a little bit quiet, going over, taking a sip of water, that's fine. But they didn't like it, so it's like you have to do it in the back room. But there was also the rule of you're not allowed to leave the bar unattended. And if you've only got one person on the bar, you can't go for a drink.
Yeah, and like, you know, in the restaurant I was working in specifically, we were pretty much set to one part of like doing what we're doing for that day. Like, you know, you just sat on a till all day or whatnot, or stood at a till. We didn't get to sit. That's a luxury we weren't afforded. But
That's so baffling, that.
yeah, and it's like, I never had one person
Ever.
go, why the fuck are you taking a drink? Or why are you taking a drink in front of me or something? It's like, no, everyone understands we're fucking human beings that need to have hydration. Like,
Yeah, and I understood it when it's like a coffee, because that does look weird if like someone's having like a full cappuccino on the bar or whatever. Like, even though it was a staff
even then,
perk.
like, generally, I've drank coffees in front of customers. No
Does it?
one
But I
ever-
could understand it if it's like that.
I could
because,
kind of understand it, like
when it's like a full-on cappuccino. So like with the because I would make, it's like, fuck it, it's free. So I'd make like giant cappuccinos and I'd make like milkshakes and stuff like that.
well, yeah, we used to like we were in like a shopping centre. People would come in with like big milkshakes or like freezies and shit like that, and whatever they're called, and just whatever drinks they wanted and drink them on shift. And no one ever complained, because
Yeah.
you know what, like, someone's allowed to have a drink of whatever the fuck they want on shift, as long as it's not like alcoholic or
Yeah.
something.
But that manager really did not like that, and it's just that thing. Oh, I saw it in their eyes when I asked them to, because they shit themselves. You could see in their eyes they were like,
Yeah.
"Why do you want me to do that? We'll just sign it on a piece of paper. Otherwise, I'm going to go get a drink." And they refused to do it, and it's like, "Well, I'm going to go get a drink then." Like, this is clearly not a policy you can enforce. The only reason that you're telling me to do is because you don't like it. Anyway, Luke, we'd like to continue, because there is a fourth reason.
Oh yeah, I forgot. We went on a tangent then.
We
Karl.
did, yes, because I was distracted. So, to clarify, we'll recap for everyone at home. So, reason one is the Allen curve, which is like, a study from the 1970s. It's not at all representative of
Very relevant.
modern office culture. Reason two is trust, and you can trust people on the internet, hence internet dating being a thing. Reason three, working from home can be too convenient. I love that. It's too convenient.
It's too convenient. Like, that's a stretch, isn't it?
Like, Lucas, when's the last time you heard someone complain about something because it was too convenient?
Honestly, I
It's
don't think I
baffling.
can ever think of something that has been made too convenient.
Yeah, like the only time it's ever a thing is like things like Just Eat and Deliveroo, where it's too convenient to get food delivered to your house.
Because that's just playing a dangerous game with your
Yeah.
own, like, your self-control.
And yeah, that's an issue with like your own, like you said, your own self-control. There's no such thing as working being too convenient. It's like it's like I say, it's the same energy as people complain about fax machines. Like in the 1980s, like, why do we need a fax machine? Why can't we just walk and hand the letter to someone downstairs?
To me, it's the energy of, like, the people that go, I miss like sitting there with a typewriter and typing out each word individually, and none of this like autofill, none of this autocorrect. If you make a mistake, you've made it. And it's like, why would anyone want to work like that?
So people complain about emails. Oh, it's too easy to just send an email now. I miss having to go instead of meetings. I miss when just like sitting down and having a meeting, getting up to stretch your legs, and it's like, no, I want to fucking do my job.
Yeah.
And then Lucas, reason 4, belonging. It is clear that we are not destined to be alone. It's hard to create a sense of belonging from a distance, but it's even harder when employees have different home lives or have never even met the rest of the team. And to that, I say, go fuck yourself. Work is not my life is not my work. Work is not my life. Fuck you.
Like, it is a completely optional thing to build any actual relationship with the people you work with.
Yes.
Like, if you want to, you should be able to clock in, do your fucking job without any like extra, unneeded conversations and relationships, and then clock out at the end of the day. That should be fine if people want to do that.
Yeah, and again, this just smacks of those middle managers of like, oh, but we want to feel like we're a family. Because if we're a family, then you should respect my fucking decision to not come into the office and risk my life in a pandemic. Like, just the things they're saying, like, oh yeah, it's great to have that 2 hours commuting, and the picture they use is people on the commute fucking hating their life.
Yeah, they've took like a picture of like a New York underground that's just crammed like sardines just in a tin. Just, well, I guess I'm loving this like commute to work at rush hour on the fucking London tube, getting crushed into the fucking station.
And the thing is, you read that, and the kind of person writing that has a 10-minute commute. Because he owns a company or whatever, and he's like 10-minute commute. It's like, yeah, he's romanticizing, like, oh yeah, you get to think about your job. It's like that Amazing Onion headline of like, fucking moron thinks he can get work done on train. And it's like the guy with a laptop on a train, and it's like no, that's not how work life is. Anything that can reduce that is welcomed.
Exactly, yeah. And like all of those awful commutes, yeah, some people need them for the job that like they might live in an area far away or whatever, but like it shouldn't be
your entire
like, a
life.
fucking necessity.
Yeah, and if you can circumvent it, why the fuck would you not do that? But Lucas,
exactly.
All that talk of bathroom is we want to go for a quick bathroom break, which I can do because I'm the boss of Big Wangers Incorporated.
Yeah, I'll do the same. So we'll be back in 2 minutes.